Political theology, balancing honor and justice. There is a question that every resistance movement must eventually answer. Not the military question, not how to fight, but the deeper, more dangerous question, why? Why is this rebellion not merely vengeance? Why is this defiance not merely pride? Why should other men with families to protect, harvests to bring in, lives to preserve, risk everything to stand beside you? Khushal Khan Khattak spent a lifetime answering that question. And the answer he constructed was one of the most intellectually sophisticated acts of political theology produced anywhere in the 17th century Islamic world. He began with Nung, the Pashtun concept of honor that sits at the very foundation of Pashtunwali, the tribal code. Nung is not vanity, it is not pride in the petty sense. It is the entire ethical architecture of a man's existence. His obligations to his guests, his duty to protect those who seek asylum, his responsibility to his community, his accountability before Allah. To violate Nung is not merely to lose face. It is to cease in a meaningful sense, to be a Pashtun, and Khushal Khan argued that submission to a tyrant, passive acceptance of injustice from a ruler who had stripped you of rights, imprisoned you without cause, and looted your community, was precisely such a violation. It was Nung destroyed from the inside. But he did not stop at Pashtunwali, because Pashtunwali alone could be dismissed by Mughal court scholars as mere tribal custom, the grievances of mountain chieftains, irrelevant to the universal claims of an Islamic empire. Khushal Khan understood this, and so he reached for a second, deeper framework. Adl, the Islamic concept of justice, rooted in Quranic obligation and the entire tradition of Sunni political thought. The just ruler in Islamic political theology is not merely preferred, he is obligated. And the ruler who abandons Adl becomes something else entirely. He becomes a zalim, a tyrant, a man whose command forfeits its divine legitimacy. This is where Khushal Khan's argument becomes devastating in its simplicity. By naming Emperor Aurangzeb a zalim, not as insult, but as precise theological category, he transformed the entire political landscape of the revolt. He was not saying, resist this emperor because he wronged the Khattaks. But he was saying, resist this emperor because resistance to tyranny is what Islam demands of every Muslim who possesses the capacity to resist. Passive submission to the zalim is not the Islamic virtue of sabr, patience. It is its counterfeit. It is surrender wearing the mask of piety, and he condemned it with the full force of his religious conviction. Allah has not created the Muslim to bow his head before the tyranny of any man. He who submits to the zalim and calls it patience has confused surrender with virtue. This was not a call to tribal vengeance. This was a call to Islamic conscience. And that distinction mattered enormously, because it meant his argument could not be contained within the borders of Khattak territory. Any Muslim, anywhere, yet who heard these words and felt the weight of an unjust ruler could find in Khushal Khan's political theology a framework for understanding their own situation. He had constructed a legitimation for resistance that was simultaneously Pashtun in its emotional roots and Islamic in its universal reach. Neither Nung alone, nor Adl alone, was sufficient. Together, on those scales, with Zulm crushed beneath them, they produced something that Aurangzeb's armies, his bribes, and his divide-and-rule strategy could never fully extinguish. They produced a conscience, and a conscience, once awakened, does not require a chieftain's permission to act.